There are worlds within this world that most people will never see. Worlds where power is not given, it is taken, or it awakens. Black Hollow City, a place where darkness isn't a metaphor, it is a reality, the kind of city where the sky forgets what sunlight looks like. And tonight, the rain did not fall gently. It slammed against the earth like a punishment. Black Hollow City was not built for the weak. Every street corner held a story of blood. Every alleyway whispered of monsters that walked like men. And somewhere in the middle of all this darkness stood the most dangerous institution in the known world. Saint Arcane Academy. A school, if you could call it that. The gates alone were taller than most buildings. Black iron forged from cursed metal, carved with runes that hummed with ancient power. Runes that warned you that what lay beyond these walls was not for the faint of heart. Students rushed through the gates as lightning split the sky above them. But these were no ordinary students. Some had wings folded beneath their uniforms. Others left frost on the ground with every step. One girl's hair was made entirely of living flame. Demons, saints, half-breeds, monsters in human skin, creatures from dimensions that shouldn't exist. They all came here because Saint Arcane Academy was the only place in the world where power could be sharpened into something deadly. And then there was him, walking alone, no wings, no aura, no power signatures that any scanner could detect. Just a boy, dark hair damp from the rain, hands in his pockets, eyes forward. His name was Max, and according to every record in the Academy database, he had absolutely no power whatsoever. 0. The lowest score ever recorded on the entrance evaluation. A flat line where everyone else had mountains. The hallways of Saint Arcane smelled like old stone and barely contained violence. Students parted around Max as he walked, not out of respect, out of disgust. The whispers started the moment he stepped through the door. Student. That's him? The 0? Student. He actually showed up. I thought it was a joke. Student. They let a powerless human into our class? Student. He won't last a week. Max heard every word. He always did. But his expression never changed. Calm. Unreadable. Like still water over something bottomless. He found his seat by the window. Rain streaked the glass like veins. Outside, the courtyard was empty. Dark. Waiting. Max stared at it for a long moment. Something about the darkness felt familiar, like it recognized him, like it was waiting for something to wake up inside him. He pushed the thought aside and opened his notebook. But deep beneath his rib cage, something stirred, just slightly, like a beast shifting in its sleep, turning over and breathing. The girl who sat next to Max was named Serena. Unlike the others, she didn't whisper behind his back. She just studied him quietly for a moment, then spoke. Serena. Hey, you're Max, right? I'm Serena. Don't mind them. They talk like that about everyone at first. Max looked at her. Max. It's fine. Serena. You sure? Because some of these people are... Max. I said it's fine. His voice was quiet, even, not cold exactly, more like measured, like someone who had learned a long time ago to keep everything inside. Serena nodded slowly and turned back to her desk. But she glanced at him one more time. Something about his eyes unsettled her. They were too calm for someone in his position, too still, like he already knew something that nobody else did. The classroom doors didn't open. They exploded, not literally, but the energy that entered when those doors swung wide was enough to make every student in the room go rigid. A pressure settled over the classroom like a physical weight. The temperature dropped, the lights flickered, and through those doors walked Eric Seaton. Silver hair, black uniform, a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Eric was 17 years old, and he had already killed 12 registered class monsters with his bare hands. Rank 4 on the first-year power index, the kind of person that teachers pretended not to be afraid of. Behind him walked Daleth Robinson, quiet, enormous, eyes like a predator, and Josiah Erickson, smiling too wide, always smiling too wide. The elite trio. The room held its breath. Eric's eyes scanned the classroom the way a wolf scans an enclosure, assessing, measuring, dismissing. And then his gaze landed on Max. He stopped, tilted his head, and smiled. Eric, well, look at that. He walked slowly toward Max's desk. The crowd parted automatically. Eric, so you're the zero they let in? The powerless boy wonder. Silence. Eric, I heard about you. Failed every entrance test. No power signature, no lineage, no anything. Max didn't look up from his notebook. Eric, hey, I'm talking to you. Max, I heard you. Eric, then look at me when I speak to you. Max slowly closed his notebook, looked up. His expression was completely flat. No anger, no fear, no anything. Just watching. Eric didn't like that. Eric, you know what happens to people with no power in this school? Max, tell me. Eric, they disappear, one way or another. This place has a way of filtering out the weak. A few students laughed nervously. Josiah cracked his knuckles. Daleth just watched with blank, dead eyes. Eric, I'm giving you advice. Friendly advice. Go home. Before this place breaks you. Max, I appreciate the concern. Eric, that's not... Max, but I'm not going anywhere. The room went very quiet. Eric's smile thinned. Not many people spoke back to him. Not here, not anywhere. Eric, you've got a death wish. I respect that. Stupid. But I respect it. He leaned down until he was level with Max's eyes. Eric, just remember, I warned you. Max held his gaze, steady, unflinching, unreadable. And for just a fraction of a second, Eric felt something. A flicker, something cold and enormous behind Max's eyes, like looking into a room and realizing the darkness inside it is alive. He straightened up, said nothing, and walked to his seat. The class began, but nobody could focus. The tension had settled into the room like smoke. Students kept glancing at Max, then at Eric, then back at Max, waiting for something to happen. Serena leaned slightly toward Max and whispered, Serena, that was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the dumbest. Max, probably both. For the first time since he'd arrived, something almost like amusement crossed his face, just for a moment. Then it was gone, and Max went back to staring out the window, at the dark courtyard below, at the rain, at the shadows between the buildings that moved like they were breathing. Something was wrong. He could feel it, a pressure in the air, like the world was about to inhale before a scream. The explosion came without warning. One moment, the world was quiet. The next, it was shattered. A sound like a thunderclap from inside the earth. The classroom windows blew inward. Desks slid across the floor. Students screamed and hit the ground. The entire academy shook like something had punched it from below. Alarms blared. Red emergency light flooded the corridors. And from the courtyard outside came a sound that nobody in that room had ever heard before. A roar, but not an animal roar. Something deeper, older, wrong. The kind of sound that bypassed your ears and went straight to your bones. The kind that made something primal inside you say, run. Max was at the window before anyone else had even stood up. What he saw below defied description. A creature. No, that word was too small. A disaster. Standing in what remained of the academy's outer wall. It was 30 feet tall at the shoulder. Its body seemed to be made of compressed darkness given physical form. Black flames licked across its skin without burning it. Each flame a different shade of wrong. Purple, black, deep violet. Its eyes were the color of fresh blood. Two massive, burning crimson orbs that swept across the courtyard. And where it stepped, the ground didn't just crack, it rotted, stone turning black and crumbling beneath it, like the creature's very existence was poison to the world around it. Student, a shadow beast. That's a shadow beast. Student, class 7, class 8, student. That's impossible. The barrier should have student. The barrier's down. The barrier is down. The Academy's elite combat teachers were the first to respond. 6 of them hit the courtyard within seconds. Veteran fighters, some with decades of battle experience. Their combined power output was enough to level a city block. It lasted 4 seconds. The creature moved through them like they were made of paper. Not violently, not even angrily, almost casually. A sweep of its arm, a single step forward, and 6 of the most powerful fighters in the Academy were down. Not dead, but broken. Students watching from the windows above stared in frozen silence. Even Eric, even Daleth, even Josiah, who was never quiet, had nothing to say. Because this wasn't a fight. This was a demonstration. Students began pouring out of the building despite every instruction not to. Panic does that. It overrides reason. They streamed into the courtyard, running for the secondary exits. The creature barely acknowledged them. It was looking for something. Its massive head turned slowly, scanning, like it had a specific target, like it had come here for a reason. Up in the classroom, Max watched it move. Something about the way it searched felt deeply, deeply wrong. He felt his pulse slow, not from fear, something else entirely. Something in his chest was resonating with whatever that thing was down there, vibrating at the same frequency, like 2 instruments tuned to the same dark note. Max pressed his hand against the glass. The window cracked beneath his palm. He didn't notice. The creature stopped moving. In the middle of a courtyard full of screaming, running students. It stopped. Its enormous head turned upward, toward the classroom window, toward Max. The 2 crimson eyes fixed on him with a precision that felt almost intelligent, almost ancient, like it had been looking for exactly this. And it had finally found it. The students around the creature felt the shift immediately. The pressure in the air changed, focused, narrowed, like the eye of a storm swiveling toward a single point. The monster smiled, and its voice, when it came, wasn't a roar. It was almost gentle. Shadow Beast. Yes, there you are. I've been looking for you for a very long time. Everyone heard it, even through the walls, even through the alarms. That voice reached everywhere. And every single person in that building turned to stare at Max. Eric, what? Why is it looking at you? Max didn't answer. He was still staring down at the creature. His hands had stopped trembling. Actually, he had stopped trembling entirely. The vibration in his chest was getting louder, more insistent, like a door being knocked on from the inside. Serena, Max, look at me. What's happening? He turned to her slowly, and Serena saw it, just for a second. A faint red light behind his eyes, like embers. She stepped back involuntarily. Serena, your eyes. Max, get everyone away from the windows. Serena, what? Max, now, get them back. His voice was different, not louder, quieter, but it hit the room like a physical force. Students moved without even consciously deciding to. The creature moved. Fast. Impossibly fast for something its size. Students in the courtyard scattered in every direction, but one girl was too slow. Serena had made it to the courtyard stairwell when the tremor knocked her off her feet. She hit the stone ground hard, looked up, and the shadow beast was right there, filling her entire field of vision, its claw rising above her. Massive. Darkness wrapped around each talon like smoke. Everything went slow. She could hear the air move as it descended. She closed her eyes. Student. Serena. She heard the screams. She heard the impact. But she didn't feel anything. She opened her eyes and stopped breathing. A hand. One hand. Holding back the full force of a Class 8 Shadow Beast strike. The claw had stopped 3 inches from Serena's face. Max stood between her and the monster. His feet had carved 2 lines into the stone beneath him from the impact, but he hadn't moved. He stood there with one arm raised, holding back something that had just obliterated 6 combat veterans. Holding it with one hand. The entire courtyard went silent. The alarms kept blaring. The rain kept falling, but every human, demon, and creature present had stopped moving, staring, because Max's eyes were no longer dark. They were burning, deep, vivid, violent crimson, and the air around him had begun to distort, like heat haze, but cold. Like the space around him was afraid. Inside Max's mind, something opened. Not a door, a gate, and through it came a voice, clear as glass, cold as absolute zero. System online. Host identified. Dormancy period ended. Threat. Assessment. Critical. Suppression. Seal. Breaking. Menacing. Aura. Unlocking. First activation quest assigned. Objective. Survive. Reward. Classification pending. Penalty for failure. Termination. Max heard every word, and somewhere in the depths of him that had been dark and empty for as long as he could remember, a light came on. Red. Blinding. And absolute. The red energy that erupted from Max's body was unlike anything the students had ever seen. Not the clean, bright aura of a trained combatant. Not the controlled output of someone who had spent years learning discipline. This was raw. Unprocessed, primordial, like power that had been locked away since before this world had a name. It exploded outward in a wave. Every window in a 50-meter radius shattered simultaneously. Students who were still standing were thrown from their feet. The ground beneath Max cratered, and the shadow beast, for the first time since it had arrived, pulled back, just slightly. But everyone saw it. The most terrifying creature to breach Saint Arcane's walls in living memory. Flinched. Eric. What? Is he? Nobody answered. Nobody had an answer. Eric had trained since age 4, fought real monsters since age 9. He had never felt pressure like this from another living being. Not from his own instructors. Not from Class 6 threats. Not from anything. And it was coming from the boy with no power. The zero. The one he had threatened 40 minutes ago. Daleth had taken 3 steps back without realizing it. Josiah had stopped smiling. Serena, on the ground behind Max, stared up at him with wide eyes. Serena. Max. He didn't look back at her. He was looking at the shadow beast. And for the first time since the creature had arrived, it was the monster that looked uncertain. Max looked down at his own hand. Red energy crackled across his fingers, licking between them like static. He closed his fist slowly, opened it. The energy responded, grew, condensed. He'd never felt anything like this before. His whole life there had been nothing. A void where everyone else had something. And now it felt like that void had been full the entire time. Not empty, waiting for something to unlock it. He looked up at the shadow beast. His voice was quiet, almost conversational. Max, You said you were looking for me? Shadow Beast. For 17 years. Every world, every layer of reality. I followed the trail. Max. Why? Shadow Beast. Because what sleeps inside you does not belong to this world. And I was sent to make sure it never wakes. Max considered this for a moment. Max. Too late. The Shadow Beast roared and lunged. To the watching students, what happened next was almost impossible to process. One moment, Max was standing still. The next, he was gone. Not running, not jumping. Gone. Like the space he occupied simply stopped containing him. A fraction of a second later, impact. The sound hit before anyone could see what made it. A single strike. Max's fist connecting with the Shadow Beast's chest. The shockwave flattened everything within 20 meters. Trees, benches, debris, flattened. And the Shadow Beast, 30 feet of living darkness and black flame, left the ground. Completely. Sailed backward through the courtyard, through the first building, through the second, through the third. Stone exploding outward like paper. And then silence. Dust settling. And Max standing exactly where he'd been. Arm lowering. Expression unchanged. Nobody spoke. The courtyard held 200 students, demons, saints, monsters. The strongest first years in the academy. Not one of them made a sound. Eric Seaton stood in the rubble of the window he'd been watching from. His fists were clenched. His face had gone pale. He had ranked 4th in the entire first year. 4th. And what he had just witnessed made his rank feel like a joke, like a child's drawing next to a master painting. Eric, that's not possible. Nobody has that kind of raw output without training. Daleth grabbed his arm, said nothing, just shook his head slowly, because there was nothing to say. They had all just watched the same thing. The zero, the powerless student. The boy they'd been laughing about this morning had just punched a disaster-class entity across the length of the 3 buildings. With one hand, casually, the dust cleared. The Shadow Beast rose from the rubble, slower this time, its black flames flickering. Something cracked across its chest where Max had hit it. Not physical damage, something deeper, in its essence. It looked at Max with those burning crimson eyes. And what was in them now was different from before. Before there had been predatory hunger. Now there was something else. Shadow Beast. You haven't even fully awakened yet. This is incomplete. Max. Yeah. Shadow Beast. When it's complete, you'll destroy everything. Max. Maybe. Shadow Beast. I cannot allow... Max. You came here to stop me. Max began walking toward him, each step slow, deliberate, the red energy around him expanding with every stride, ground cracking in his wake. Max. You came a long way. He stopped 10 feet from the creature, looked up at it. Max. You hurt my friend. His voice was soft. Completely, unnervingly soft. Max. I'm going to need you to answer for that. The Shadow Beast made its decision. It unleashed everything. Every ounce of its Class 8 power detonating outward in a single pulse. The black flames exploded, expanded, consumed the space around it. Students hundreds of meters away were knocked off their feet by the pressure. The sky above darkened like something had covered the sun, and at the center of that storm of darkness and fire, Max stood still. The black flames hit his aura and stopped. The red energy around him didn't waver, didn't compress. It pushed back, steadily, effortlessly, like a mountain disagreeing with the wind. And then Max raised his hand, and the red aura detonated, pure, absolute. The shockwave hit every direction simultaneously, and the Shadow Beast was simply gone, disintegrated, unmade, like it had never existed. The silence that followed was the loudest thing anyone had ever heard. The red energy faded slowly, like embers dying down after a fire. Max stood in the middle of a destroyed courtyard. Rubble, craters, smoke. His uniform was barely marked. He looked at his hand one more time. The energy was still there, faint, but there. He could feel it now. He could feel it everywhere, in the ground, in the air, in himself, like it had always been part of him. And it had just been waiting. 17 years. Waiting for today. He closed his hand, turned around, and found 200 people staring at him. Every eye in the courtyard, every student, every survivor, all of them silent, all of them watching, and in all of those eyes, there was only one thing: fear. Serena was on her feet, shaking slightly, but standing. She looked at Max